Alright, howdy folks. So, give me 1 second. Alright, so people wanted to see the node setup. Since I've made a whole bunch of changes, my node setup is much different than my previous version. Um, and some of the stuff is old and just doesn't work with the new model yet because I haven't switched it over. The tail, I believe, does work. I think. Yep, tail works. I just switched over leg length. So the leg length, the hair doesn't follow yet. I haven't fixed that. It only works when the length is 1. But, you can set the leg length independent of the height of the character. So you can get quite a lot of variation for you. So you can have long-legged aliens or, short-legged humans or whatever it is you want to have. One is, a scaling. Let's see. The tail is, just a cylinder, a curved line. It's changed into a curved mesh from a curved circle. And that, adds in where I can place in fur. And this tail is for the animation. Oh, I'm using Blender 3.5 now, which broke my ability to transfer in vertex groups. So I have a whole bunch of vertex groups for animation and for hair and stuff like that. Before, I could take the original geometry and do a join geometry, and it would transfer all the vertex groups. Well, somewhere in the middle of 3.2, in early version 3.2 beta, it worked. By the time they finished 3.2 and released it, it didn't. So now I have to use a mesh boolean, which is incredibly slow. Like, it does the exact same thing. It only adds a single point, and it went from less than a tenth of a millisecond to 34 milliseconds by changing from join to mesh boolean. So, it adds, and this adds a lot as well. This is the UV unwrap just for the hair. This won't go into the final production because this hair is using the new hair system and it can't be exported to the video game. So it's just there for pictures. Actually, I can remove this and the hair stays. Yeah. So I only need this while I'm adding and removing hairs from the mesh. That's it. It's really strange that it has to have a UV map to add and remove hairs. Like, I don't quite get it. Like, when you do, like, instance on points, you don't need a UV map. And that's pretty much what I'm doing here with the hair is, but it's like, I want to add it in manually. Actually, I probably don't want to add it in manually. But regardless, I've got something that works, so I'm going to leave it alone. Because this is just for pictures. So I'm not going to work. I spent way too much time on it. Anyway, back to the notes. Sorry. What is all this? Oh, this was... this, to transfer the... So, the mesh boolean adds in the vertex groups, but they're empty. So, I literally have to transfer the contents, the values of the vertex groups from one side of the merge to the other side of the merge. Yeah, it's janky. But it works for now. The wings I showed in another video. I haven't changed those. I haven't updated those. So the base mesh is this cluster. of nodes. Let's see. What does this one do? Scale elements based on leg length. Okay. All right. So this is the setup I have um, for setting the leg length, all the points accurately. Um, the thing is, if it's greater than 1, I have to do it one way in one order. Like I have to scale it and then set the positions. Uh, or if it's less than 1, I have to scale it and then set the positions of the rest of the body. Because if you just scale the points in the middle, there'll be a huge stretch. Um, but if it's greater than 1, I need to move the body first and then scale the leg in the middle. You know, if I used by index, I wouldn't have to, the order wouldn't matter. But since only one of these, if you can look at the timing, the timing on this just doesn't exist because I use a switch node. So, it doesn't matter that I switch the order because only one of them's ever active. Let's see. This is basically a mirror because I only build out half the model and then I do a transform and flip it. This is auto tracking that I made so that the eyes will follow the camera, but moving the camera around for whatever reason is incredibly sluggish. Like I can move this around easy enough, but if I go over to, the camera, and it's not going to do it this time. Of course not. Like before, it was taking 3 or 4 to 10 seconds to update each frame, even in like the viewport shading mode, or even the wireframe. Like just moving this camera around was taking like 10 seconds. But for whatever reason, it doesn't want to do it now. So, who cares? I mean, the viewports are they're all the same. I mean, not the viewports. The node groups are all the same process. Um, so I start out making the eye sockets. Um, so I make out the eyes, and then I make a curved circle. Let's see. And yeah, the hair's not gonna move. Humanoid. So that's what I start out with. That's the entire beginning of my model. I scale it down to get kind of an eye shape. I set position, get more of an eye shape. Uh, then I wrap it around the eyeball itself. This is a ray cast around the eyeball. And then I give it some thickness with a curved mesh. Then I start extruding, and I set position of stuff, extrude more, get some scaling to it, set the material, set position. This actually does a rotate to it. Like I rotate it 9 degrees. Let's see what angle I'm using. Yeah. So I rotate the skin, like the outer skin, but not the inner part, like 9 degrees to kind of form the angle of your eye opening on your face. Yeah. more movement. Then here I join it with the eyeball. Scale the whole thing a little bit so that it actually gets a reasonable size for the model. Just more set position of different. Let's turn subdivision surface off. So this is the actual model I'm working with. Like it's moving 1 point at a time. Just moving 1 point at a time to where it's supposed to go, just like you would if you were hand modeling. That doesn't do anything. Okay. And this one rotates it around to, like a facial position. And let's see, nose. The nose takes in the geometry from the eye socket, so it knows where to start. Nose. I'm funny. So I separate out the geometry so that each time the indexes start back over at 0. I do this for a couple different reasons. One, while I'm working with the model, it's only working with the positions or the indexes of the part I'm working with. Because set position is, it has to go over and look at every single point and pick from those single points. And the more points you have, the slower this is. So if I'm doing a selection of this point right here, I don't want to have everything in there if I can avoid it. So let's do, like it extrudes that. So it's still part of this mesh, and then does a separate. So now it just has the nose part. And then you start moving 1 point at a time, extrude another part, move it over, and then move it over, extrude another one, extrude another one. 1 point at a time, extrude, extrude, set position 1 point at a time, extrude. And this took me forever to make. Because I had to fiddle around a lot because these are all manually entered in positions for every single point in the model. So it has extreme precision. Every single point. People wanted to see this, so like I told them, it's just 4 nodes repeated: extrude, set position, split edges, and merge by position. That's all the active nodes, and it's just 1 point at a time. And starting to get to the hole in the nose. And all right, so here I've got where it's got to meet back up. So when I extrude, and now I set this position to the point of this index. So I'm moving this point to the position of this index, and then I'm merging them so that it's a seamless thing. And you need it to be seamless when you extrude again, so that there's no break here. If these weren't merged, this face and this face would be two separate things and wouldn't be connected by this line here. Then move everything over, Extrude again to get some interior nose. Extrude again. Scale elements down to 0. Um, that looks kind of ugly as it is, but when you do a subdivision surface, it smooths everything out, so it looks really nice. People want to see this. And it's, same thing all over again. Zoom out and zoom back in. Alright. Curved mesh. Transform. I honestly don't know why I did a new curve. I genuinely don't know why I didn't use this. Don't know. Doesn't matter now. Oh, I do know why. Because I started inside the mouth instead of where the nose was. Because the nose only has like 2 spots. Like, it only has like 3 places that it connects up with the mouth. So that's why I used um, the circle. And this part is really hard to get right. I had to mess with it all quite a bit. Um, because the mouth, the lip corners are incredibly difficult to get looking right. Um, so this right here actually has like a whole lot of geometry right here in this corner, so that when you do the subdivision surface, it doesn't like go wild. It basically keeps everything together. And then you pull back the lips, do some more set positions, do some more set positions, more geometry. Um, then you start making everything, sizing it up, positioning it, extruding more, moving everything one little thing at a time. And let's turn the subdivision surface off again. So just moving, one point at a time and matching it up with the sample index of the nose position at index value to make that part of the mouth line up with the nose. Face is the same way. I actually forgot to separate it out. So these indexes, eventually I'll have to go through here and fix this and remove, change every single number of every single input all the way down this line, and subtract out and separate it out so that it runs faster. It still runs in oops, wrong button. 1.9 milliseconds. That's really fast. But when you need to generate 1,000 of them, you know, that's now 19 seconds. No, that's 1.9 seconds. But if you do that for, that's just the face. Then you got the back of the head. Then you got the ears. Then you got this other stuff. If you don't separate it out, it starts adding up. It's not huge numbers, but if you can get rid of it, why not? If you can optimize it, why not? But there is the face. And it, because I didn't separate out the mouth is actually still there. But I did separate the nose and the eyes, so those are not there. Back of the head, I forgot to separate it out again. Ears, forgot to separate it out again. Um, the ears alone took me 8 hours to make because they're such an insanely complex um, shape. And, that looks incredibly ugly until you do a subdivision surface. And then it looks, reasonably like an ear. Uh, the uh, the connection looks terrible when you're in, wireframe mode, but when you go back to skin mode, it doesn't look bad. Like, could it be better? Yeah, sure, but it doesn't look bad. Um, and this is, the skin texture is my own little thing. Shading. Let's go to skin. So that's my own little shading thing for skin. Um, that's completely procedural, so procedural textures have infinite resolution for almost no file size. So it takes the object coordinates, does some noise on it, multiplies it, changes the mapping and the scaling a bit, does a color ramp, mixes it with a whole bunch of other stuff that are exactly the same procedure but with different colors, like your red and beige, red and whites, blue and whites, more blue and whites. I don't know. Like I fumbled around with this for quite a long time before I accidentally got something that I really liked. You can see like a whole bunch of nodes that are not connected to anything. That was just me continuing to play around. I mean, you have this whole thing down here not connected to anything. Um, and here's where I can add in freckles. I don't have it implemented on this model, but I do have the procedure set up in the skin tone already. Freckles basically just adds in a darker color and just to use a mix shader. I'm not sure if anything else, and yeah, the freckles have no subsurface, um, and that's also the same. So it is implementable. Um, Basically, what I do, this is an attribute, and the way that I would pick this out is, how do I describe it? Store named attribute back in the geometry node setup, and just tell it freckles, and it will add in freckles there. Uh, let's see what else. Ears, horns is actually made a little bit different. It uses a spiral node, rotates it around, uh, does some of the curve tilt. Um, and the curve tilt actually goes by the factor so that it will spiral out. Like, okay, that didn't do what I thought it did. Huh. I actually kind of like it. I kind of like it with a sharper point to it. I'll have to play with that later and fix that. But those points are just so close together that they're getting merged and like getting deleted. That's like what? Like I know those points are further away than that. and I don't fill in the end cap. Actually, I do know how to fix this because I can get the position of this one and only merge the ones that are at that specific point. But I have to have this in here to merge all the points that are right there. They're at the exact same position. Um, Most of the other stuff is turned off because this is a whole lot of trial and error because I'm doing stuff that other people just haven't ever done, so there's no tutorials on them. So I'm having to make it up along as I go. And this is where it adds it into the head. Um, let's see how much of this I can actually show well. So it deletes out some of the geometry where the horns would go. Um, I don't know why the split edges is there. I'm sure it will show up over here. So I'm moving these I'm sampling the index from the horns. So I move the horns over to where the head is, and then I'm moving the individual, like the entire set of the horns. And then I'm moving the individual points on the head over to where the horns are, just one at a time. Then I join the two, and then I merge by distance, and it's boom, seamless. Like I can show you before the merge, it's not seamless. Like they're not together, even though without it, they look like they're in the same position. They're not one mesh until you do the merge by distance. But once you do the merge by distance, it becomes one seamless mesh. And I've set the material of the horn before it was merged. It actually kind of extends that out, and I don't know for certain why. I wonder if I swap that out. Nope, still the same way. And I love that skin texture. I mean, it looks very realistic to me. Neck and shoulders, same thing. Arms, same thing. Everything is just, extruding, set position, one point at a time. Now there is some split edges in here where I have to add in more geometry, like right here. Um, so right here, originally it's just, now these are being extruded into here, and then I split the edges right here and extrude in between them and set them and merge them. This gives in extra geometry for bends like elbows, knuckles, shoulders, um, any place that bends, I add in extra geometry. Um, so that'll have a smoother transition. I noticed this topology is, critical for animation quality. So I added in wherever it's needed. I'm trying to figure out why it's doing that, whatever that is. Okay, anyway. And then, the hand, same thing. One point at a time. Let's just pick a random point. See, random point. It's just one point at a time. You know, I made this. This is not a model that I picked up from somewhere else and edited. These are one point at a time. Um, there's the lower torso, the upper torso. Um, I don't actually have any morphs. That must be old. Um, like I haven't migrated any of the morphs except for the leg length. Um, which I showed that earlier, wherever that was. I think the leg length, yeah, the leg length is over here. So I should probably bottle that up into one little node thing. And get this hot mess out of here. Actually, I don't want that in there. Is that all of them? All right, Control G. Leg length. So that controls the leg length. Let's see, leg is there. I actually did some funny stuff right here because this is where the side-arm morph comes into effect. So to keep from having to calculate like all the positions of both the satyr leg and the human leg when only one of them is being used, I've got a switch node here, and when the satyr is false, this is not being calculated. Like you can see the time, and there's no time here because it's just there's nothing. Um, you got the foot there. The toes are really terrible. They are literally just copies of the fingers. I haven't finished the toes yet. I'm not. Hold on. I'm not going to leave them like that. Um, but for now, they're just stubby fingers. Um, they don't look horrific, but they do look really odd. But, most people are wearing shoes, so I'm not terribly worried about what the toes look like at this point in time. Because most people use shoes and boots and stuff like that. How the satyr leg morph works is recorded in another video, so I'm not going to duplicate that. I joined everything together here. Oh yeah, okay. So the auto track sets the eye position to follow the camera. So that's in two places. Because I saw that over somewhere. Yeah, there's two copies of that. I need to find the other one and delete it. Oh, here it is. So one of these is not like the other. So, oh no, it actually does need both of them because this is for the left eye and this is for the right eye. Okay. Because they will not have the same angle. Because they're not in the same position and they'll have a different angle to look at the camera. Let's see. All right, so there's half of it, and then you do a join geometry. Still looks a little bit weird until you do a merge by distance, and that fixes all that. What to do with the shoulders? Oh, because there are seams between all the individual parts. Um, you can't see the seams when the subdivision is off, but when they're not connecting to the subdivision on, it will create holes. That's why you need the merge by distance. Fixes all the holes in between the individual parts. That controls the leg length. Trying to think what else is there. The tail, I've already showed the tail. The wings I need to redo. Right now they're way too simplistic. Where is the wings? Alright, so 4. Oh, I've got the. Well, that didn't work. Well, it was working before. Okay, so the wings are broken for some reason. Leg length is in the right place, and like even the feathers are broken. I've got screenshots of the new model with wings, and it worked. So I'll have to figure out later why the wings are not working, but the wing shape needs to be redone anyway because they're just not right. These are still the proof of concept, really ugly looking wings. Um, Anyway, turn that back off, and I have like pairs of number of wing pairs. So you could have like angels with like 4 different sets of wings, and I'll set it up to where you can set the size of each individual pair. What else is there? None of this is implemented, um, except for the eye stuff. I think the eye stuff is still in there. Except for this, none of this is implemented yet. Like most of the stuff is just not implemented in the new model yet. So because I literally deleted the entire original model, like 6,000 nodes that I spent 3,000 hours working on. I just deleted it and started over because the first version was a proof of concept, and it was like math based, but the topology just looked horrible for animation, which I didn't know was a thing until other people started pointing it out. And kudos for the people that did. Um, but now everything is animation quality. The hair took me forever to make um, because it doesn't. Even though the hair curves is made in geometry nodes, it flat out doesn't understand objects made in geometry nodes. Um, so getting it to work was just a nightmare because it wants to use UV maps. Um, Now I could use it without UV maps and use the generate hair, but then I can't comb it. Like it just won't let me comb it, so I can't style it. So it's just like, well, that's not useful at all. So what I did is a I took a sphere and I added some geometry nodes to it to position it where the points of the scalp. Um, so it's and then applied that modifier. The reason I applied the geometry node modifier is because whenever I did anything to this model, the hair would go in like it would redo the hair so it would look like a different size and shape, and that was just not going to work. So the only way to get it to be stable is to apply the modifier so that the um, this didn't change. And so this is like a physical object instead of a geometry nodes object, but the hair works. Still got a bald spot, you know, but it's good enough because all I'm doing is using it for photos while I'm like demonstrating the models because I have to add, I have to re-add in like all the different modifiers for like the arm length, fat, muscle, finger length, hand size, um, one at a time, you know, and I want to take screenshots of when I add it in, but, you know, I don't like the model being bald. It's just, you know, after a while you want it to have some hair. I could add some fur, but then you can't really see the shape of the of the body. That's it. That's everything. That's the entire. I mean, it's the entire node group. This is not added in yet, but these are the vertex weights for uh, the rigging, which I haven't added in yet. This is the vertex group for. Actually, I can even get rid of these now, so that I could create the scalp. This is to add in the vertex groups for animation. This is scaling, transition different units. This is to move it up to um, even with the floor. I mean, that covers everything, I think. That's for like pants and a shirt, which takes just the underlying base mesh and just pushes it out a little bit, makes a copy. Very, very generic. Yeah, I mean, it's just positioning one point at a time, splitting edges where I need to add in geometry, and extruding. That's it. Alright, that's it. Over. Game over. Bye.